A lot of guys assume that once you're living in a place like Paraguay, that you somehow got it all figured out financially. But after living in South America since 2022 and talking to expats all over the region, I've realized that a lot of guys are actually either in between remote jobs. Maybe they have a lot of money saved up and now they're burning through their savings. Maybe they're taking exploratory trips to prepare for the future. Or they're still tied to a business back home and just trying to figure out their next move. And honestly, I've been kind of figuring out as I go myself while being in South America. So in this video, I'm gonna break down how I actually make money here living in Paraguay, what I think most people get wrong about remote jobs in general, and why I'm personally doubling down on building income through content and personal branding moving forward. Because the truth is, I think there is a massive difference between having a remote job and actually building income that you own and control. By the way, if you're new here, my name's Alex. I left the US in 2022 and now live in South America full time, earning income online. And if you want to learn how to start building income online through posting content and building a personal brand, I've got a free community link below. Now let's get into the video. Let's dive right in. So 2 ways I make money online living in Paraguay. This is going to be a real breakdown of the 2 ways, which is remote sales and content creation. Now, once you come to Paraguay or places in Colombia, you're going to find that there are so many people in remote sales, and there is also a lot of people in content creation. These seem to be the 2 big things that are going on right now. And I've been fortunate enough to be in remote sales for a few years now. And content creation, I've been doing for a little over a year. So I'm going to go over what's working, what's not working, and why I think ownership matters much more than just remote job income. All right, so let's talk about my first stream, which is remote sales. Remote sales is what gave me the ability to leave the US, to travel to multiple different countries across Latin America. And it's really been a big blessing to me. Okay, I was in real estate before. Because I had my real estate background, it was a pretty simple transition to get into remote sales. And I don't regret that decision. Now, as I mentioned, I meet a lot of guys in Asuncion and Medellin. They're doing some version of this. They're usually selling some type of high ticket coaching program, some type of high ticket course. Maybe they're selling done for you agency services or consulting, or some people are in B2B. They're more in the corporate side of things. Right? There's so many different types of offers you can do within remote sales. Now, most of you are still in the United States or somewhere in your home country and trying to figure out the income part. So I'm speaking to you guys, all right? If you guys want to get into remote sales, I think setting beats closing, especially for beginners, but even for some experienced guys as well. All right, I'm going to explain. So setting, the conversations are always going to be shorter, usually about 15, 20 minutes. There's a lot less pressure, right? Because you're usually not asking for money over the phone. But even though I have been in setting positions like that where I do collect, whether it's a deposit, whether it's a portion for the client to earn a position on a closer's calendar. But generally speaking, there's no heavy objection handling. There's usually no collecting of any money. So it's a lot simpler to do. All you're really doing is qualifying leads. You're creating interest and you're booking appointments for them to show up on the closers or the account executive's calendar. The cool thing about setting, and a lot of people don't talk about it, is you can literally work when you want to, okay? Especially if you're on the outbound side of things. You don't have a bunch of calls on your calendar taking up your entire day. So as long as you're hitting your KPIs or your key performance indicators, which is typically going to be, you're hitting $200 a day, but with a dialer, you can do that pretty quickly. And once you get good, like once you have the skill set, then you can easily book 2 to 4 calls per day within $200 a day, working much less hours than you would have to as a closer. The other benefit, especially if you're starting out, again, I'm speaking to you guys who are starting out. If you guys are already in sales, you can ignore this whole conversation and just wait till I get to the content piece. But most setter jobs that you'll find have a pretty decent base, especially for South American standards. There's a lot of setter jobs out there that give you a $2,500 base, a $3,000 base, maybe even a $3,500 to even more. And for whatever reason, closers don't get a base. So if you're looking for more stability, you're just starting out in sales, having a base is obviously going to give you a comfort level. Even someone who's experienced like myself, like when I do setting jobs, I want a base, because if it's commission only, my entire livelihood depends on someone else closing a deal. And don't get me wrong, if I'm on a really good offer with really good closers and really good client success, then I'm happy, being on a setter job with no base. In fact, the months where I made the most as a setter, where I made over $10,000 per month as a setter, was when I had no base. And again, once you get really good and you're able to book 2 to 4 quality appointments per day, and you have a guaranteed 25 to 3K base, that's not including commissions, of course. You obviously make more than that when you include your commissions. Then you're living a pretty good life in South America. You're not working crazy hours like maybe a closer would, especially in the beginning. And you're able to enjoy your time, right? This is what gave me a lot of freedom to travel, to build up this channel. But let's talk about closers reality, because I've done closing as well. So what a closer does, a closer usually, or you might have heard account executive, Their calls are usually about 45, 60-minute calls, booked throughout the day, right? Usually at least 5, sometimes 10 calls are booked on their calendar per day. They're dealing with a lot more follow-ups. They're dealing with, people not showing up to the scheduled call. They're dealing with customer support too. A lot of people don't talk about this. When you're a closer, and you close a deal, a lot of times you're still part of that client success process, right? Not only do you have to hand them off to the client success so that they can fulfill, but a lot of times that client is going to come back to you when they're not happy with the product or the service that they're getting. A lot of these companies are scaling. They're spending a lot of money on ads. They're enrolling a lot of people. So it's tough to, sometimes customer support breaks. And if you're in a closer role like that, then part of your job is going to be just managing client satisfaction. And especially if you're doing a lot of payment plans, you want to make sure that they're happy, because otherwise you won't get paid part of your commission down the road. The goal here is not to get into all the weeds when it comes to setting, closing remote sales. But generally speaking, you're dealing with more responsibility, more stress, longer hours. A lot of the best closers I know, guys that I hang out with, they're working minimum 40, 50, 60-hour work week. Minimum 5, most of them 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. And to be honest with you, they're making good money. A lot of them are making well over 15K, 20K per month, but they don't have the time freedom. Outside of closing, there's really not much time left for them to build their own thing, for example. And for whatever reason, closers also get no base. All right, typically a closer gets 10% of the deal. A setter is going to get maybe 5% if they get no base, but if they have a base, maybe it'd be like 2.5%, something like that. All right. So unless you're someone with a lot of sales experience, maybe you were in real estate like I was, maybe you, I don't know, have done other sales roles, then sure, you can dive right into being a closer. And if you want to, grind for some time, then it's going to make sense for you for sure, because you'll make a lot more money with closing, especially if you're good. And then down the road, there are people who are elite at this stuff, and they probably work, very few hours to make really good money because they're on some offer that charges maybe like 100K or something like that. And maybe they take a few calls a week and they're crushing it. That's the exception to the rule. But my guess is, especially if you're new, you're trying to escape the system. You're not trying to make, 10K per month right away. You're probably just trying to escape. And all you really need to escape, my opinion, is just 2 to 5K per month, especially if you're going to be in a place like South America. Most setter incomes, you're realistically making somewhere between 3 to 5K minimum, especially if you're getting a base of 2,500 to 3K. You're usually making over 5K per month consistently when you include the commissions. So this is very realistic. This is very achievable as a setter while living abroad. A lot of people do it. And you also have a lot more time freedom, right? You're not working your entire life away doing this. But yeah, I say that this is bare minimum, right? 3 to 5K per month. But there are plenty of setter jobs. There are setters that I know making well over 10K per month consistently as well. So from what I've seen within this industry, being in it for a few years, this space has exploded when I first got into it. I see more and more people entering it every single year. I see more and more coaches. I see more and more people who are, maybe they started off as setter, then they went into a closer. Now they've made over 10K per month as a closer. Now they start their own offer as a closer. There's just so many more people like that. So this industry has exploded, and the competition has gone a lot higher to find good gigs. All right, and that's part of the reason I don't talk about this, because I think it's pretty saturated. I think it's tough for someone brand new to break in, just like anything else. That's the remote job world in general, but it's not impossible. And it really depends on your goals and your experience and your background and your ambition. For most guys watching this, you're probably going to want to start off as a setter or an SDR. But even for some of you experienced guys, if you want to work fewer hours, if you want to use that extra time to build up a passion project or a hobby or a personal brand like I'm doing, and put your full time into your personal brand and part time into your sales, then setting might make sense for you for a period of time. And then eventually you'll probably want to get back into closing, because setting is going to get tiring and redundant, and maybe you might burn out after you've had so many conversations and you're not really growing. So just like anything else, it has its pros and cons, but I just wanted to dedicate some time to this because it's something I haven't talked about at all on this channel, and it's something that I do know a lot about. Now let's talk about the problem with remote jobs such as sales. All right, now even though remote jobs are better than office jobs, they're still jobs, right? They're still technically the same thing. It's just you're just location independent, which is a big difference, but you're still in a job. And here are some cons that come with that. Obviously, in a job you're working for somebody else, right? You're still helping somebody else build their dream. You're helping somebody else build their company, their assets. All of your hard work that goes into it is building someone else's thing. Versus you could be building your own thing as well. And this is the problem I see with a lot of closers. A lot of guys are making really good money closing deals for other companies, building up their company, which is great, right? They're building up a great skill set, but they're not building anything of their own on the side because there's really not enough time or energy to do so. And the truth is, almost no one that I know wants to be a full-time closer or remote salesperson for the rest of their life. It's always going to be a means to an end. Now, some guys, their exit strategy is to earn as much as they can closing, right? Maybe earn over 15K a month, save a bunch of money, invest it into real estate, invest it into Bitcoin, invest it into something that's going to earn them passive income or semi-passive income into the future. Maybe they want to open up a trading account. That's one path. Another path, as I mentioned, a lot of them end up creating their own offer. They create their own one-on-one coaching offer. Now they're teaching something that they themselves are good at or have gotten good at. But the problem with that is that how it's tough to escape something that you're teaching, right? So if you want to be a closer, but eventually you want to transition out of closing, then starting your own offer, you're teaching something that you're doing, and that if you get out of, you're no longer going to be able to teach because you're not doing it anymore. But a lot of people also go the route of management or leadership, which is also a viable thing. But the problem with that is you're stuck on meetings every day, right? You don't have control over your calendar, and you're still building someone else's company unless you have ownership or partnership of the actual business. But that's another path you can take as well, as management. Now, another problem I see with remote jobs is you need permission to take time off. This was a big one for me, guys. Like being in real estate, I was always used to having my own time. I've always had my own time. Every 3 months, I would take at least a week off to go to, or at least maybe like a long weekend off, to go to like the mountains in New Hampshire or Vermont, or I'd rent out like an Airbnb outside of the city somewhere. It doesn't have to be in New Hampshire, Vermont. It could be somewhere maybe in Hartford, Connecticut, or Newport, Rhode Island. This is back when I lived in Boston, around New England. But when you have a job, you could ask for time off, and they probably will give it to you, especially if you're hitting your numbers. But usually I notice that it's frowned upon. Very, very few people. Like I've been on this offer for the last few months, and I haven't taken any days off, only like Christmas and stuff like that. And just the fact that I have to ask someone to take time off. Hey, would it be all right if I could take these days, right? Just that aspect alone limits my freedom. It limits my sovereignty. So remote job for me isn't something that's long-term. It's more of a means to an end always. And especially nowadays, you guys are vulnerable to layoff. Like no matter how good you are, your income can always disappear overnight. It's not true for sales as much as other jobs. Like I have a friend that was, he's in tech, right? And he recently got let go of his tech job. His uncle has been in tech for 30 plus years, and he was laid off with just an email, guys. So now with the rise of AI, more and more tech jobs are super vulnerable to AI and to losing your job. Now this goes for sales as well. Sales, I think, is maybe the one skill that if you're great at sales, then you'll always have a job. You'll always find some type of work. You don't have to worry about, you won't have to worry about that, especially if you have good connections and a good network. But even in sales, it does get pretty vulnerable, right? Sometimes an owner stops spending money on ads. Maybe the ads are no longer working. So there's a lot of different things that could happen within remote sales as well that's vulnerable to either getting laid off or laying yourself off a certain offer, which is why I'm not a fan of remote jobs as something to think about long term. So my opinion, my thoughts on this, if you guys want to start with a remote job, to earn your location freedom, it's what I did, right? I did it in remote sales. So I can't say don't do it, definitely go for it. But just remember that the chances are you won't want that remote job forever. And you're going to want to start building income that you control and that you own as soon as possible. Me personally, I started my journey late, and I wish that I had started sooner, right? Remote sales gave me the opportunity to travel, to explore, and it's what gave me the idea to start this YouTube channel as far as when it came to my travels and exploration and quality of life and everything that I talk about leaving the West. But I started late, right? I started maybe 3 years into my journey. I started traveling in 2022. I left October. And had I started then, I would be so much further ahead right now. But I didn't start until late January of last year in 2025. So it doesn't have to be a personal brand. It doesn't have to be anything with content creation. But whatever it is that you can see yourself doing, that you own, that you control, that also you enjoy, guys. That's an important thing as well. Remote jobs aren't really enjoyable. You're doing it to earn a paycheck for the most part. Now, if you also value the skill set, right, and what that skill set can do for you for your own business someday, then that's important. But all I'm saying is you want to start your passion project. You want to start your own thing really as soon as possible, even if it's just part-time. Just get started. All right, now let's talk about my second income stream, which is building a personal brand. So the second way that I make money online is through posting content, exactly what I'm doing now. And I think what people really want deep down, as I mentioned, is they want control. They want to be their own boss. They don't want to have to ask for permission to take time off. They don't want to build someone else's company, someone else's brand, especially if you're a guy. I mean, we all know that we want our own thing at the end of the day. And the cool thing about income that you control, it's not tied directly to the hours that you work. And something like building a personal brand, you put in hours, you decided to work when you want, how much you want. And then when you do the work, that work lives on YouTube, for example, forever, or any assets you create, any communities you create. You can earn money while you sleep. I also think that artificial intelligence makes personal brands stronger, especially nowadays. Not only is it least likely to be replaced by AI, but it's also compatible with AI. The better that AI gets, the better that you get with your personal brand, because AI is going to help you write, edit, research. It's going to help you create much faster. And meanwhile, your life experience, your opinions, your take on things, your personality, that becomes more valuable, especially in an AI-driven world. It's what your personal brand is. It's what's something that AI can't replicate. Another cool thing is you can earn multiple different income streams from having a personal brand, right? My channel generates income and generates leads from Paraguay residencies. I simply refer them over to my residency specialist, and then he does the rest of the work, and then he gives me a referral fee as a result. So I earn referral income. I earn some affiliate marketing income as well. Some consulting calls, some coaching. I've done packages in the past, and I have so many more ideas, all just from posting videos online. So like I said, if you guys need a remote job right now, I completely understand that. Do what you got to do to get that remote job. If you guys need help, and if it comes to remote sales, feel free to book a call with me. But I think the goal should be as soon as possible. Start building income that you actually own and control as fast as possible. That's the game that I'm playing now. And that's the game that eventually, if you were to get a remote job, you're going to want to be playing the same game really quickly. So that's it for this video, guys. Hopefully that gave you an honest look on how I actually make money here in Paraguay and really all over South America. And hopefully that also gave you a bigger picture on the reality of having a remote job versus having a personal brand and building real freedom long term. And if you've made it this far into the video and you're interested in learning how to build your own personal brand and start making income through posting content online, I've got a free community link below where I break down everything that I'm learning along the way. And if you're interested in getting Paraguay residency, I'll leave the resources in the description below as well. Or if you just want to keep watching similar videos to this one, then check out the video that I did recently on my exact lifestyle costs living here in Paraguay. You can find it right here, and I'll see you there.